So coming off of the previous chapter, we saw that Yuji had trapped Sukuna inside of his domain expansion, which essentially just creates a facsimile of Sendai, the place where Yuji grew up. Other than that, we don't really know too much about Yuji's domain expansion. It does have a sure hit to it, which allegedly, according to Yuji, can straight up kill Sukuna. And that's where the previous chapter ended, with Yuji telling Sukuna that and basically saying like, hey, I'll spare your life if you leave Megumi's body and come back to me. So now coming into this chapter, we're seeing that somehow Yuji is able to listen to Megumi's soul. Like he's seemingly interacting with him here and coming face to face with him in some plane of existence. And we're finally hearing Megumi talk. Like we haven't really heard him say anything since Sukuna took over his body. He only really said one or two things the other time that Yuji was able to get through to him, you know, landing like his soul reverberating punches on Sukuna. And we saw that Megumi pretty much said that he was done. He didn't even want to like get up off the ground. But now when Yuji faces him again, he's at least standing. And he says that he wanted to create a world where Sumiki, his sister, wouldn't be subjected to unreasonable happiness. Or at least, you know, as much as he could while he was alive. And basically just wanted to live in a somewhat comfortable world where even, like, Yuji was her boyfriend. Meaning that, you know, Megumi of course sees Yuji that highly. And knows that somebody like him would be the optimal suitor for his sister. But now that Sumiki is dead, and that overall she was just like a pawn in Kenjaku's plan, as well as Megumi, he really has nothing left to live for at this point. You also have to remember that Sukuna has suppressed his soul using that bath ritual thing that he did before he fought Gojo. So I'm sure that also has something to do with how Megumi is feeling here, but still, he's essentially at his wit's end. And Yuji kind of understands where he's coming from because he relates Megumi to his grandfather, who we're finding out here died of lung cancer. We didn't know that. We just knew that his grandfather was like terminal, but we never knew exactly like what he had. And he compares how Megumi is feeling to his grandfather's like final days, essentially. So he's like, hey, you know, the way that you are now, I can't really tell you to live. Like he's just trying to be like realistic here. But after he says that, Sukuna suddenly activates Hollow Wicker Basket, and he's like back to his normal form again, because before this, when he went into Yuji's domain expansion, he suddenly took on the appearance of like when he took over Yuji's body, which was interesting. Like going inside of Yuji's domain expansion like altered his own appearance. But first guys, it's the summer and a lot of us have some extra free time now. I know that I do, and I would really like to work on my productivity, and I can do that using Skillshare, because Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives with thousands of classes led by industry experts across film, illustration, design, freelance, productivity, and more. And recently they just created a new and improved class system, including smarter class categories, 3 new class topics, creative careers, creative inspiration, and AI and innovation, and the ability to find classes by software and material. New members are asked to share a little bit about their interests, and from there, Skillshare immediately surfaces recommendations tailored to their goals. Now, my goal for now, like I said, is improving my productivity. And to do that, I took Ali Abdal's class, Notion Masterclass, Maximize Your Productivity and Organization. Ali helped me so much using the Notion app. I was able to free up my mental space and focus on generating ideas and solving problems, and not just storing endless information, because now I'll be able to organize better and create a better system for making my YouTube videos and stay on top of my personal life as well. So guys, if you're looking to better yourself this year and use a very valuable learning path from Skillshare, check the link in the description, because the first 500 people to use my link will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Thanks guys. But I guess now that he's activating the Hollow Wicker Basket, Yuji's domain isn't really affecting him as it would, since just like a simple domain, it can protect him from domains, except both simple domain and Hollow Wicker Basket can only be so powerful. Like, they're obviously way weaker in comparison to the power output of like a domain expansion, considering their only function is to protect you from the sure hit of the domain. And that being said, they'll eventually break, as we've seen many times in the series, but using Hollow Wicker Basket, can account for that discrepancy in power, allegedly, because Sukuna holding his hands together to keep it activated strengthens it. It's almost like an unspoken binding vow, if that's a thing. But it also goes into why Sukuna having 4 arms is so incredibly overpowered in the Jujutsu world, because, you know, he has like the perfect domain counter here. Because normally, if you were just a regular person, your hands would be bound, holding together the hollow wicker basket. But now that Sukuna has 4 arms, it doesn't really matter. Now, I don't know what came first here. Sukuna being born conveniently with 4 arms, or he like somehow did something to give him 4 arms. Yes, I know that Sukuna is a fusion of 2 people, technically, like his unborn brother, but I don't know if he came out of the womb looking like this. It seems like the body that Sukuna has here was made with purpose rather than he kind of just came out that way. I mean, maybe he did, but like, still, what's going on with the right side of his face? But anyway, Sukuna starts thinking about maybe using Gojo's technique of healing his brain, because when he was fighting against Gojo showed him that, like, hey, after you use a domain expansion and your curse technique gets burnt out, you could just use reverse curse technique to heal that part of your brain where the curse technique is burnt out. I mean, yeah, of course, it's not really good to do that, but in the midst of battle, it's like a quick fix. But Sukuna realizes that it's just too risky to do that at this moment, because he is just coming off of his fight with Yuta inside of Gojo's body, and he did get hit by Unlimited Void. So after this, he goes after Yuji, and they have like this extended hand-to-hand sequence where Yuji is like somewhat getting the upper hand on him. But as usual, it ultimately ends up with Sukuna getting like the final counter in with like a big right cross or something. And as he knocks Yuji away, he's like remembering how angered he was by what Yuji said at the end of the previous chapter. Because he realizes why Yuji was like talking to him in the previous chapter and like walking him around Sendai and being very passive. He was like, oh, you know, you're taking pity on me. You're trying to be merciful. And Yuji's like, yeah, that's right. I can kill you. So free Megumi and I'll spare you if you return to me. And it's like, yeah, that must have really boiled Sukuna's blood, because how many times in his life has somebody actually looked down on him? As we've seen so far, everyone reveres him as like some kind of deity. So of course he's going to be upset when the shoe is on the other foot. And he says, like, because of that, I'm going to make everyone other than you pay for that. So by that line, you know, you just assume, oh, he's going to kill everybody. But he's already kind of killed everybody anyway. I mean, yeah, there's more people, but maybe he more so means activating the merger, because he does have the key to do that. He has like that Tengen curse womb inside of him that Kenjaku prepared. Now also, of course, the culling game needs to come to an end, as per the rule that Kenjaku set up. And then the culling game barrier, like the thing that makes up the game, will like merge everyone in Japan with Tengen inside of that barrier, and then it'll make like that big curse monster, which is essentially the apocalypse. However, like I said, culling game needs to come to an end, and for the culling game to come to an end, everyone besides Megumi needs to die. And considering that we are seemingly in the final arc here, and I don't know if we're going to make it into 2025, I doubt that the merger is going to happen unless it's just rushed. But suddenly Yuji sees like a young Megumi, like similar to when we saw Gojo taking care of him back in the day. And he's talking to Yuji and he's like, what's with your face? And Yuji's like, you know, I'm just lonely when you're not around, Fushiguro. And then suddenly Sukuna steps into like a 10 Shadows puddle, similar to what he did to Gojo in their fight. And he's shocked by this. He's like, wait, Maharaga was destroyed and my 10 Shadows techniques lost its ability to function. This is Megumi. The soul that was submerged by the bath has been revived by the boy's dismantle. So yeah, when Yuji was hitting Sukuna with those dismantles, it was targeting his soul as well. And that was also weakening his hold on Megumi. So now that Yuji's been able to have like a breakthrough here, Megumi's finally able to fight back, and from the depths of his soul or wherever he is, he's able to like activate his curse technique, the 10 Shadows, to use it against Sukuna here. Now, also, Sukuna's saying that Maharaga's destroyed. The 10 Shadows technique lost its ability to function. That's interesting. We didn't know that. I mean, we knew that Maharaga was dead, but like, I didn't know that he was dependent on the technique functioning. Now, Maharaga died in like the last moments against Gojo. Like when Gojo fired off that huge hollow purple. And I guess that's why Sukuna hasn't been using the 10 Shadows, because that's it. He used it against Gojo and then he just burnt it out. But I guess Megumi could still use it. I don't know if they're tapping into 2 different 10 Shadows, but I'm assuming that there's something that Megumi's doing that Sukuna can't. And while Sukuna's like distracted by that, Yuji lands like this big blow on him that goes into like this huge combo, like almost like machine gun blows. But Sukuna's getting like his own shots in here too, but Yuji's really laying it on him. And Sukuna realizes that Yuji's strikes still have like an effect on him that can't be healed by reverse curse technique. And as he's saying this, Yuji's hand breaks. But not like breaks, but like the thing around it breaks off. For the longest time, we didn't know what this was. I mean, technically, we still don't really know what it is. But when we first saw him drop in to fight against Sukuna, after Kashimo had died, we saw these things on his hands. And we were like, what is that? And I guess we were just led to believe that it was some kind of curse-like transformation that happened from Yuji consuming the Curse Womb death paintings that Choso had gave him, like his other pseudo brothers, and it gave him like a power-up, and I guess the ability to fully use blood manipulation, but it did not give him these hands. These hands are apparently just cursed tools? Still not sure, but once they break open, we see that Yuji's ring finger on his left hand is missing. And I guess that's why he was wearing these, to cover up that his fingers were missing. And this is important because only Yuji's left pinky was missing before, because that's how Sukuna transferred himself to Megumi. He like transferred his soul to Yuji's pinky, ripped it off, and then force fed it to Megumi. However, Yuji still had his ring finger, but now it's missing. And in the final panel of the chapter, we see that Sukuna's final finger still exists. And it's like suspended somewhere in this like spiral staircase by wires. We could assume this is with Jujutsu High, forces somewhere. But this is interesting because we thought that all of Sukuna's fingers were accounted for. Especially because Yuta told Sukuna that Rika basically ate his finger to gain Sukuna's curse technique that we saw him use. Like he did use Cleave against him, but that was it. He didn't have like Dismantle or Divine Flame or anything. But now it seems like that was maybe a ruse, because now that Yuji is missing his index finger, I guess this means that he cut it off and gave it to Rika so that she would gain Yuji's Cleave. I mean, that's maybe what happened. Still unsure. I mean, it's even possible that the finger that we're seeing in the final panel here is Yuji's index finger turned into a cursed object the way that Sukuna was. Now, that's a little far-fetched because I don't think they know how to do that, and it seems like it's like a pretty extensive ritual to be able to do that. So, Occam's Razor kind of says that this is Sukuna's last finger. Also, all of Sukuna's fingers look different, which is pretty interesting. It doesn't really mean anything. Like, we at one time thought, oh, they all give different abilities. No, they just kind of just look different, I guess. And going off of all of the fingers that we've seen so far, I don't think we've seen one that looks like this. So it might be, like just the last finger. And I guess they lied to Sukuna for this very reason, so that he would just think everything's fine. All of my fingers are accounted for. I don't have to worry because of this final plan that they have here, maybe. And then, like, what are they going to do with this last finger? Especially if it's like in a remote location. And I'm not really sure. I mean, there is a fantastical theory that we can go with where Nobara comes into play here. Now, I don't think Nobara is alive. Gege more or less kind of double confirmed that she's dead. I mean, there still is a chance, of course, that she can come back and she just shows up at the end here, but I don't think that's going to happen. More likely, maybe her hammer comes into play here, and it has like her curse technique imbued into it, the way that we saw Nanami's cleaver had his curse technique imbued in and it was used by Ino, maybe somebody is going to, I don't know, do something like that with Nobara's hammer and then use soul resonance on the finger, and then that's like the final nail, pun intended, in Sukuna's coffin here that releases Megumi from him. Or Rika like ate a piece of Nobara's corpse, which is pretty dark, but I could see Gege doing that. And then Yuta just gained her technique that way. And then, I don't know, he does something possibly, but obviously the finger is going to come into play here. So let me know in the comments what you guys think is going to happen with the finger here. And do you think that whole theory about Yuji letting Rika eat his index finger to get cleave is actually what happened here? Let me know. And if you liked the video, guys, please give it a like and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.